Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the not quite Valentine's Day episode of the Microsoft 365 Government Community Call, where we are excited to share a love story between state government agencies and the Power Platform. Rima, Sarah, as always, a pleasure to have you.
Thank you. I literally love being here. No pun intended.
Oh, there it is. I hope we have lots of heart emojis happening right now. Man, we're sad not to have your other half of Sarah. Jeremy's out helping his mother this week, but excited to have Cat Schneider, the Power Platform developer for Insight, later on in the episode. Before we jump to that, Sarah, you want to kick us off on community events?
So some of these have already passed, but they're either going to have recordings. Actually, I think all of them are going to have recordings that you can go back to later. So we're going to kick it off February 8th, DC Power Platform User Group, Canvas and Model Apps. 2 on February 9th. First would be the Microsoft Federal Biz Apps on extending virtual agent chatbots with Azure. And then also February 9th, M365 user meetup group, Teams and Whiteboard for effective communication. February 21st is the GCC High M365 monthly webinar on enhancing productivity with M365. And February 22nd, there is an AMA on Windows 365 and AVD4Gov. And that is a collaboration with the Windows community and public sector community. And it actually is going to include video with a live chatting session that's also going to serve as an AMA. So there's going to be members of the panel. Right. Yeah, there's going to be members of the panel on camera that are answering questions, but also members of the panel that are in chat answering questions. So it's going to be like cool. Double the effort here.
Yeah, because normally the AMAs are just chat, right?
Yeah, they're usually just chat, but this time we're doing it. It's also going to be featured on a Windows update show.
Nice.
The name is escaping me. Christian Montoya, I believe his name is. So he's also going to be hosting that video as well. And up to that point, it's Washington, D.C. Power Platform User Group, and I will let you take it from there.
Yeah, so we've got the Washington, D.C. Power Platform User Group on March 8th doing a Power BI thing. And then the M365 User Group of DC on March 9th. They have a date, but not a session yet, so make sure you check out their website to find out what they have coming. And then a couple of non-user group things that I think are of particular interest. The Microsoft Business Applications Summit, which you can get to from aka.ms/fedba summit. We'll put the link in the chat, of course. They have 2 days on March 14th dedicated to civilian and March 15th dedicated to the DoD and intelligence community. So if you're looking for how to use business applications in those areas, that'd be good for you to check out. And I think they might even be in person. Of course, also on March 15th, AvePoint is we're kicking off a Power Platform Roadshow. And on the 15th here in DC or Arlington at the MTC, we're doing a session, how to build a framework for the Power Platform for management and governance at scale. So very excited about that. This is not an AvePoint pitch. This is all about, how to support your citizen developers of, thousands, tens of thousands, et cetera, in being able to manage and govern what they're developing. And then lastly, back to the user groups, the M365 meetup for government. They didn't have a date down, but knowing Nick, Nick Giard, who runs that organization. They usually meet the last week or so of the month. So check the link here in the next couple of days, and I'm sure he'll have something posted soon. And if you're not subscribed, if you have a Meetup account and you're not subscribed to it, highly recommended.
Yes, great stuff because I presented last month. I'm just joking.
And I wasn't able to make it. I heard you had a heckler though.
I had like 2 hecklers, but no, it was great. It was cool. I always love being heckled, I guess. Okay, so roadmap. I know I'm always talking about roadmap. So a couple of things. Actually, Jay, I'm going to attribute this to you, but you put in some sweet tips here to kind of talk through, and we'll put the link in the chat. But if you go to the Microsoft roadmap site and you filter on the cloud instance of what you're in, so for example, DoD or GCC High or GCC, and then on the page you'll see the ability that you can click on and filter on launched or rolling out. You'll see the things that have already been, GA'd or they're already in your environment, or things that are rolling out as we speak. And it's a great way to sort of focus on what you just want to see. So I think we talk about this occasionally, but I feel like it's good always to just, bring it up over again. But
well, there's 2 things that I've learned recently about that, because I've used that to search, but I've never actually realized that in the filter, you can filter by release date. So if you want to see the things that were released in the past month, you do those filters and you sort by release date, and you can see everything in January, everything in February, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep.
The other thing that I think is really cool, I know some of our power users have done, is there's a RSS feed for it. And so you can take that RSS feed and put it into a Power App and filter and push it out as news to your users for things that are of relevance to them. A really cool feature for the roadmap that if you're not using today, highly recommended.
Wow, Jay, I think we just found a speaking topic for you.
Right?
Random side note. Okay, sorry. I'll dive into kind of things that have GA'd, and by GA we mean generally available, meaning they've been released to everybody. So Viva Topics and GCC. Viva Topics is really cool. You can have topic relationship suggestions on a topic card in SharePoint, and it provides answers and related people. Viva is such a hot topic. Jay, you talk about Viva a lot actually, so I'm sure this is right up your alley.
It is, and Viva Topics has such huge potential, but it's so limited in GCC right now. This was specifically the topic relationship suggestions from the AI are going to start appearing if you're in GCC. So this is something that's available commercially, but in GCC, this is going to be brand new. It's just rolled out GAA. Wait, I'm done.
He meant GA. Okay. We also have Teams Federated tenant group calling at GCC without PSTN usage charges. We also have a new Graph API for forms to help enhance user activity and detailed metrics. And that's for GCC, by the way. For GCC High, we have task email notifications. So that's pretty cool. So now it integrates, the planner sort of notifications that you get when you're either late for something, which is usually me, and assignment notifications. A lot of that stuff flows through email. And now they actually, it works in GCC High where you can get, notified and alert for that. I feel like that's huge, especially for GCC High. I feel like that's really big.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, especially for somebody like me who's always late on everything. I always joke I'll be late to my own funeral. People who know me will be like, yeah. In DoD, organization-wide search for DoD across files, sites, people, news, integration with SharePoint, OneDrive, Office.com, shared results between SharePoint and Office. Also updates to the admin center called Search and Intelligence, really allowing you to manage search features and gain more insight from usage reports. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
There's also Outlook suggested replies in DoD, disable, enable single attendees video in a DoD Teams meeting. How many times have we all wanted to do that? Teams meeting audio permissions and overall management in DoD. You can, as an organizer, you can enable or disable microphones, which is good. Again, That would be great for hecklers, right?
And it's one of those features that's been around forever in the commercial world, but DoD has been sitting there waiting for it. So I know I have some customers that are specifically excited about those.
I mean, everybody's proper in DoD. No. Who would you want to mute? No, it's fine.
Yeah, let's talk offline about what I've heard about Teams names in DoD. It is not proper, I promise.
Wow. I think I know what you're talking. Okay, well, offline conversation. And then, worldwide, we've got Intune security management of unenrolled Defender for endpoint devices. And then there's a whole bunch of other stuff. Do you want to kind of give the summary of the other stuff that's coming?
Yeah, I mean, there were something like 219 items that are in development, but in the rolling out, the current things that are currently rolling out, but not generally available. Teams Premium and GCC, co-organizer support of managing breakouts all the way up through DoD.
Ooh,
Templates in Planner Web all the way up through DoD, and also Teams meeting expression emojis, so you can not just raise your hand, but love or clap or whatever through DoD. The other one that I thought was really interesting, I was surprised to see this worldwide all the way up through DoD. You can now create a request a file library in SharePoint that you can give to external users, where external users are allowed to have access, of course. And so I can send, I could have sent Kat, for example, a link to upload files into my SharePoint library, and she could send us her headshot and her bio in that library for the recordings and stuff. So really cool feature that has been frankly missing, because I keep hearing my support team going, does anyone have an FTP site I can have someone upload logs to? And it's like, oh man.
Put it onto Dropbox or Box. No, I'm joking. Don't do that. I'm just
upload it to my floppy drives. No, anyway, so lots of cool stuff going there. That was just a summary. There was a lot more. So if you want more, go check out the roadmap. Here's the link, and we'll go from there. Sarah, I think we're up to you and what's going on in the community from a news perspective.
I actually gave most of the updates already, where we have the AMA and everything like that. The rest was just some of the roadmap updates that you guys had already touched on. So that's what we have going on currently.
In the Venn diagram of life of this episode, we've completely erased Sarah's topics. I'm so sorry.
No,
that's fine. No, there was not as much to touch on in like the updates for the roadmap as well, and then like we just have the upcoming events. Just going back through it, that's currently all we have, but we have a lot more coming out. It's just not out yet.
It's February. Right. People are just coming back from like vacation, right? Like it's the holidays.
Yeah. We did you guys enjoy your January break, by the way? Not doing an episode, it was a relief from a time perspective. For our rabid listeners who missed us, I'm sure. I'm so sorry, but we did need that month off badly. So
all right, re-energized.
Enough about my ego. So that's our news, our roadmap, and our events. Make sure you check the chat if you want any of the links to what we talked about, including some of the roadmap items. So I guess let's move into the interview itself. Very excited, as we mentioned, to have Cat Schneider join us. Cat is the Power Platform developer over at Insight. Has an amazing background of personalized things, which sometimes I get really jealous over, because with my new office I have these beautiful window curtains, but all my personalization is gone. Kat, welcome to the group, and tell us a little bit about yourself. Oh no,
you're
Kat, you're
muted. Or not, because she doesn't just pantomime it. Just like,
yeah, right.
She works in a box.
This kind. That
we knew what you were mouthing though, which is great. It totally worked out.
So I am Cat Schneider. Recently moved to the commercial space from GCC. I was in GCC for almost 15 years. So I am very familiar with the heartache that a lot of people in GCC feel when they get into some of these new tools, where it's you go in, you're like, hey, I heard about this really cool thing and let me go use it. And you get in there and womp womp, it's not available for GCC.
Yeah, so, we've seen a lot of that.
It's almost like we're like, you remember when you go to like places like Disneyland and there's that thing that's like you must be this tall to ride the ride, and it's like,
and GCC's always like 6 inches too short.
No, no.
Wait, I couldn't ride any of the rides. I was always too short. I still am.
No. Everybody else gets to go on Pirates of the Caribbean, and we have to grow another like couple of inches before we can go there.
And they're always promising that they're going to lower the height limit too, just a little bit, and it never happens.
Oh, this is the best
Best.
way to describe the feature releases. It's amazing.
Best analogy ever of 2023. I'm just
Yeah.
putting it down now.
So I attended the Microsoft Power Platform conference back in September,
Yeah.
and I swear, like, people kept asking. I think it was one of the final keynotes. They're like, "When's stuff coming for GCC? When's coming for GCC?" And I was like, "Hello, I'm another candidate right here. Like, get me GCC features." And they're like, "I don't understand why people keep complaining. Like, everything that's commercially available is released within 7 days for GCC." And I'm like, "Fire!"
Yeah, we can say that it's not inaccurate. I have a t-shirt, Cat, I need to show you actually that I've worn at Ignite the Tour. I will share that with you offline. That's right. You have it too.
Oh no.
I do.
Oh. They're getting better. No, okay, we'll move on. So
Yeah.
so today, Kat, you mentioned you've been in the government space for 15 years. You've got your hands very you've been very involved in the Power Platform. That was going down a bad path. I've learned that I'm really, really bad at describing things like that, and I just need to stick to normal words. So we're excited to have you. Sarah, you want to kick us off?
I can indeed. All right. So starting off, a lot of people don't really understand, like, I think this is probably because like generic words keep being used. So like what services are included in Power Platform and what do they all do? Like, I mean, at least this somewhat applies to like what it does with the words Power Platform versus Viva. And I thought Microsoft was getting into the paper towel game. So that's,
Oh my God,
I did.
so true.
I was very
There's a new service called Brawny coming out. No, I'm joking.
Oh goodness.
But yeah, like what's all included in Power Platform, and what do these services do for, like, I guess even just the novice, because I've tried to describe Power Platform to some friends and it so even if we could make some good metaphors, that would be good too.
Yeah, and this is actually, it's kind of in line with what I'm trying to do now that I'm outside of the GCC space, which is provide kind of information, starting point, like that missing part of how do I go from being a regular business applications type user, doing data entry, making Word documents, Excel documents, into trying to use the Power Platform. Now I need to understand the way things are coded and logic and like what is going on. So I want to help people that want to make that jump but don't know really where to start, get into it. And so I just posted my first blog post this week on my website, you'reawizardcat.com. Plug. But it's literally just about booleans. And what does a boolean mean in the Power Platform? It's true, false, it's active, inactive. It's anything that's there or not there, on, off, 1, 0, But what does that mean? How do you use that? And so right now, my first blog post is about, what is the Boolean? And I'm hoping that my next blog post, I'm going to be able to say, okay, this is kind of how you use it in the Power Platform. This is, quick tips and features that I've used in order to get around trying to make the logic extreme. But I want to do that for all of the data types within Power Platform. And then from there, all of those data types, how do those data types apply in Power Apps? And how do I apply my Power App and those data types and this information to working in SharePoint or working in Teams and so like I've got topics for days, years even, but it's looking at that GCC user, that person who more than likely doesn't have, access to premium features and licensing, person who can't get funding from anybody because it's 27 hoops and tape and everything to jump through. And you still don't really know who your system administrator is to beg and plead and ask and, offer up your firstborn and whatever. It's just so you can have access to some of the tools. So I want to help those people, and even by helping those people, it helps everybody else. Like the common denominator is like, what am I looking at? Like I remember getting in my first Power App and I'm like, what is this? I've been coding in VBA macros in Excel for years. I've been building forms. I can make Excel talk to Internet Explorer and log into my EPA website with my username and password, go to the right page, download the documentation, put it into Excel, then upload it all up to SharePoint. Like, I can make things happen in VBA. What am I doing in Power Apps?
Different directions you could take things too. Like as a citizen developer, as someone who's just trying to solve a problem, like you go to the easiest route, right? The least barrier to entry is what you're looking for. And sometimes when you look at Power Platform, like do I want to build an app? Do I want a flow? Do I need Power BI? What do I use as a connector? Am I looking at Dataverse? Am I just storing
what
stuff in
is a
SharePoint?
connector?
That's a good point. They're probably not asking which connector to use, but what the heck is it? Good call.
Yeah, no, like there's a lot of people. So I was one of the first ones in the agency to actually start building in Power Apps. We had some consultants who were building in Power Apps for us, but the problem is we didn't have our security plan in place in order to let us even have access to it. So a lot of what it was is I got some access through it because of what we were trying to do at the time, which was build an employee recognition app for the agency.
Oh, that's cool.
Like where I was, it was in organizational development. So, we had policy and process, we had training, like all of our training for the entire agency, and then quality management, our, who did we have? Mentoring and internship and quality management dashboards. So like there was a whole slew of things that we were doing, but one of the things that we were in charge of, or most of our team was a part of, was how do we build our employees up? How can we, how do we get through this pandemic? And still feel connected to the people that we work with. But how do we also build morale? And when I came to that agency, I'd actually come from another agency that I'd been at for 11 years. And this one, I was like, wait, we have an employee survey to actually ask what, how people are feeling in their job, like how it could be better. Like this is insane to me. So it was a nice transition into where I was at, but then also getting the ability to try and learn new tools and features so that we could better the rest of the agency. So, I got into Power Apps, got into Power Automate to get some of those things flowing, got my hands on Power BI, which was phenomenal. Like I never used pivot tables in Excel. That was the one area of Excel that it was just like, you see that shadowy area over there, Simba? We don't go into that area. I made pivot tables without pivot tables. So
awesome.
Oh, you muted
you're
yourself.
muted again.
All right, so to show everyone what you're using, just so they know.
Yeah.
Like, so this is the new Teams remote, yeah? That's crazy. So is that Bluetooth or USB?
It's Bluetooth.
Okay. And it's got a mute button. What else did it have on there?
Yeah, so this is the mute button here. This is the page button, so you can page through your PowerPoint presentations. This is the laser pointer function. So as you are on your PowerPoint presentation, you can use the laser pointer to point out things.
But like,
I have not figured out how this works because there is no sensor on the end of this bad boy. So I don't know how it knows that I'm on this screen versus that screen versus this one over here. Like, it's
that part's crazy.
Magic.
Yeah.
And then this guy right here, I can do that.
That one disconnect you? Don't push that.
No. No, this is that I can raise my hand and lower my hand. So I can be all the way across the room away from my computer and still mute and unmute from the computer and raise my hand and lower my hand. It's fantastic. But I had it in my pocket and I hit my pocket and it muted me.
So coming back, you talked a little bit about like your first app. Do you want to tell us a little bit about like what you used to develop that app?
So I'd come into Power Apps right out of Power BI. I'd got into Power BI because of the mentoring that I got from our CIO. So I went into the mentoring program, got mentored by our CIO. First meeting, he's like, "Hey, I got a extra license for Power BI. You want to try it?" And I was like, "Yes, please. Sign me up." Got that, and then I put together kind of a report or a demo dashboard, if you will, of the employee survey results that we had just gone through. And then I presented that to the entire IT group, if you will. Like 700 people. It was like a statewide meeting. And it was only like a quick little 30-minute presentation. It's like, "Hey guys, look, this is something that I've done. You've all been familiar with our employee survey results for the last 20 years. Look what you can do with Power BI." And I just clicked one visual, which was people who strongly disagreed with the pay that they received was equivalent to the work that they do. And clicking on that specific value, the rest of the report filtered, and they were like, "What?" I can now see specifically what these people didn't agree with the rest of the report. It was mind-blowing. And so we ended up getting a community of practice set up for Power BI shortly after that, at which when I left the department, we were close to 300 people participating in that community of practice.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
But one of the things when I split over to Power Apps was, okay, I've got one person I can talk to about this. And I'm asking the CIO because he loves programming. Like, he was madly into continuing to program and continuing to work in those things that the people working for him worked in, so that he could be knowledgeable of, what they're talking about when they're telling him the things that are going on. So I'm like, "Okay, explain this to me, like this concept and how this concept works." And so he would explain things, and then I would go back and fiddle around with Power Apps and like, what is the disconnect here? And a lot of it was the way that you were generating information within Power Apps.
Right.
But using Power Apps, which that was the essential part, the whole big portion of this shout-outs application, was Power Apps. And then every now and again, it was pinging over to Power Automate for workflows, because we ended up updating that so you could change your M365 user image, because prior to that, it was shut down. You could not change your user image without going through very specific channels. And so working with our IT folks, I was able to figure that out. So we got that put in there, and that used Power Automate to send an email to the appropriate people to approve the image and then upload it to wherever it needed to actually get uploaded. And then the shoutouts application itself, which I did not realize how badly people needed it or wanted it. I don't know if praise is available in Teams. And so it was prior to praise coming out.
Okay.
But basically we ended up putting it out in the side rail for Teams, putting it on the desktop so that like somebody could just click on it and send somebody just a quick, "Hey, thanks for the work you did," or, "Great job last week," or, really putting forth the effort to go above and beyond, or, just quick little snippets. But you got in there, selected who you wanted to send it to, if it was a one person or a group of people, put in a message, attached a picture, clicked a button, and it sent an email. And, it went out to their managers, like whoever was included on it. So they got, copied on the email. And then all of that information, which it all published to a SharePoint backend, because at that point, that was all I had to work with.
No Dataverse.
Dataverse was an absolute no-no. Like, could not touch it, could not go anywhere near it. And everybody who did like finally find their way into Power Apps, it just seemed like every single person who did it, they're all like, "What's this model-driven app thing?" and went to start creating a model-driven app, only to find out can't do anything with it. So
So, it's funny. I was just about to ask. I was like, hey, like, what kind of challenges or like blockers did you face from like not only just a technical perspective, but also from like a people organizational perspective? Like, I mean, we can dive through the technical first, but it sounds like knowing even like, hey, like Dataverse isn't available for GCC at the time, right? Was there anything else that you found was like kind of like an uphill battle to climb from a technical point of view?
So the biggest uphill climb for me was finding out that there is a feature that is available. Like everybody's talking, oh, if you just go out there and you just do this and blah, blah, blah. And I would go and I'd try and do it. And no, it doesn't work. But why doesn't it work? It says it's supposed to work. And then finding out not even just functions or formulas or features not being available in GCC, but finding out that there were some things that everybody talked about for the commercial space before I realized the delineation between GCC and everybody else. There's some features that are available that they have actual different names. And it is mind-boggling. I don't even remember where it was, but it was something that I came across one day. Everywhere I'm looking, it's like, oh, that should be this, and this. Like, these are your options. And I'm looking, nah, that's not what's on my screen.
Yeah.
You're lying.
So, yeah, okay, so what about from a... Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Jay.
I was gonna agree. Like, there's the delay in release, especially back 2 years ago, the delay in release from commercial to GCC not only was a delay in new features, but when something got rebranded or moved around, that delay was also really bad. It's still, there's still some problems like that. It's a lot better than it used to be, but absolutely, I remember when they started changing the location of the mute bar in Teams.
Oh yeah.
And we were running a conference right when that happened, and I've got someone. It's a commercially run virtual conference, and I've got someone in the government space going, none of that looks like what you're telling me it's supposed to look like. I'm like, no. Are you in the GCC? Like, oh man, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the same, like, anywhere, like, you look at anything within Power Platform, and it's like, oh, I'm just doing it like this, or try to do it like that, and it's like, no, just kidding. You can't do it like that. You're not allowed. Sorry. And so that kind of like when I moved from GCC into the commercial space, I was like, oh, I get to use premium features.
The freedom.
I get to play with the all of the toys in the big kid sandbox now. Like,
I can imagine you running through Toys R Us, well, formerly Toys R Us, and just being like, "This is amazing."
I might have worked at Toys R Us for 5 years.
Oh, stop! That's crazy. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, no, and definitely it was one of those jobs where I was like, "Oh my god, look at the toys!"
That's awesome.
So yes, getting access to new toys and features, and finally getting access to features when they come out because they're just available. It's been insane. But one of the things that is just near and dear to me is the people within GCC. Like, everybody's got to do more work with 10% less each fiscal year, and it's like 10% of 10% of 10%. Like, eventually you're going to run out of things or people. Like, resources eventually run out. And so I don't want to make it something difficult. Like, I want to give people the ability to go somewhere and figure out, okay, what can I do in GCC? So like that's part of what I want my blog to be. Like, it's gonna sound very beginnerish when like all of the first blog posts come out, because it's meant for people just getting into it. But eventually, like, my hope and thought in it is that I'm gonna start getting into some of those really cool features, those fun little projects that I wanted to get into that I just never got time to do because I needed to do more with less.
Right.
So, I was at the point right before I left of just updating a people picker field in SharePoint to provide permissions and access, or remove permissions and access for somebody in Teams, in several teams, in SharePoint pages and lists and groups, in getting access to do things like all over the place, like just by updating a single people picker field, which also displayed the person in the list of people within that group. So, it was a lot of stuff and features, but it was years of research and baptism by fire in the SharePoint space with permissions getting to that. But somebody just getting into that, they're not going to understand it. So I want to give them a foundation for understanding how to get there.
Yeah.
But yeah,
we all start somewhere.
Exactly. Yeah. That foundational knowledge is huge. One of the, and it doesn't matter if you're talking about Power Platform or Taekwondo, that trophy right there it's all, if you don't have that foundation, if all your focus is trying to do the cool stuff or something, like what are you gonna do?
And slapdashing a foundation together has never worked out for anybody.
Right.
So
I'm curious how clearly you've got your plan for the blog, but what would you say, hey, new person trying to solve a problem with Power Platform, like where do they start?
So the main question is, where does your data live?
Okay.
Like, where does it already exist somewhere, or are you needing to create a new space? Because the one thing that, we in the agency that I was in, we were very, very heavily into SharePoint. Like everything was in SharePoint. It was insane to me when I got there because I didn't realize that SharePoint had workflows, because the agency that I was in previously, like, you only had access to lists and document libraries, but none of the other features that came with lists and libraries. So a list was essentially just an Excel document without any fancy functionality.
A great comparison.
Yeah.
Jay's like, oh my gosh, no.
It was
yeah, that sounds awful.
Just joking.
Yeah. And so then I had access to workflows and permissions, and there's all of these hidden permissions features that you can get access to. And I was like, what? So, for me, it was start with SharePoint. But more specifically, if you don't have access to a play space, is to go get a play space. While it's not the same as GCC, everybody has access to a developer sandbox through Microsoft. All you have to do is sign up with an email address and you get an entire development workspace.
We're going to need the detail around that.
Yes.
I'm sure people will be like chomping at the bit for that information.
Developer.microsoft.com, I think, aka.ms/developer. Probably somewhere in there.
Maybe.
I'll put the link in the chat.
But, going out there and signing up for a free space, you get Teams, you get SharePoint, you can do all of the things. You can see what it looks like in the administrator panel behind the scenes. Because it got to the point where every time a new feature came out, I would Teams chat our system administrator, hey, do we have access to this feature yet? And she's like, I don't know. I find out about new features from you, to be honest.
Oh my god, that's awesome.
But like, you could go out there, you can see, oh, hey, there's this new feature, and it's off automatically, or it's on automatically, and it's got to be shut off. So, I had this feature available to me, but now, a week and a half later, the feature's gone. Like, it's probably because your system administrator just found out about it and said, oh no, that's off.
Yeah. Yep.
So we had that happen, I think, with our Power BI connector space in Teams. Is we had Power BI reports available, and so somebody had an entire tab with Power BI reports for how this group needed all of those to be shown. And a week later, everybody's going in there and they're pinging him like, hey, it's gone, I can't get access, what's going on? And had no clue that it was because it got shut off through the administrator side. So especially if you see a feature and it starts working and then it's gone, like, start asking around IT who the system administrator is for Microsoft and try and get to be best friends with them.
Right.
That is the best way to get access to new things. And
Yeah.
I completely feel you on the things being there and then not being there, because Rima and I were completely geeking out this week about the new Stream Deck API for Teams, and within like 2 days of it releasing, it was shut down
Gone.
because of a security flaw. I was like, oh, great.
I wondered what
But
was
I
going
still-
on with that.
It's still working for me though.
So they took it off the market is what they did.
Yeah.
They must have left. The APIs must still be open or something.
Mm.
Oh, man.
But yeah, I saw one of the big names out on Twitter. He's like, I tried to install it, but I can't find it. Where's it at? And they're like, it had to be taken down.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, man.
It's like, bummer. So, yeah.
And then I guess I'll like moving along, I'll round off this this subject matter. I know we already kind of touched onto it a little bit, but how do you enable and empower the citizen developer? I know we had already started to talk about developer.microsoft.com, but
Yeah.
how
So
else
a
would you
lot
do that?
a lot of what we had done as far as empowering citizen developers, one is we had our citizen developer, or our community of practice, if you will, for Power Platform. Building that up, or not Power Platform. It started out as just a couple of people getting together, talk about Power BI, and then it turned into a community of practice specifically for Power BI. And then once I was like starting to get antsy about not really having anybody to go to ask questions, I was like, so can like we change it from Power BI to Power Platform? Because like I got questions about Power Automate, I got questions about Power Apps, I got questions. I mean, now Power Virtual Agents and Power Pages. Granted, what Power Pages isn't quite available yet for GCC, or it's like some limited capacity. But
yeah, I think it's limited still.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, training team that we had questions all the time. How awesome would it be to have a bot set up in Teams that you can ask training questions for? Hey, where do I go to get access to my LinkedIn learning courses? Oh, here's the link directly to your LMS so that you can get there and go into your LinkedIn courses. Or, hey, I'm trying to find out what training I need to complete before this time. Oh, here, let me look it up for you and spit out when you need to do it and how to get access to it. So, that our training team wasn't constantly overwhelmed with more requests.
Right.
So those are things that I would love to be like, have been able to build. I just didn't have time or access or capacity. So that's what I want to do now that I'm not in that, is show people how to build that. And just have fun with it, really. So
it's funny when I talk to like the biz apps architects at the MTC, or I talk to the global black belt Power Platform people like Bobby Chang. One of the things we talk about is do hackathons. Like if you are building a practice around citizen development, you are enabling your end users. The best way to educate them is get them to play with it. And so if you can host a hackathon, guided hackathon especially, which shows them like, hey, let's play with, I'm going to say Dataverse today. Let's play with Dataverse. You now have access to it. Here's what it can do. Here's what it can't do. Let's do something around that. Like that's a really strong tool, not just enabling them, but showing them how to do it.
Yeah, like a hands-on lab, sort of like a workshop in a weird way. Like, because I feel like people get scared with the term hackathon because they're like, oh, no, I'm not a developer. I can't hack or whatever. And like I know what you mean, Jay. Yeah, like hands-on is so important. Bobby Chang is like amazing at doing that.
That's one of the things that I was talking with our CIO about, is how do we have like hackathons? 'Cause he was all about, let's enable the citizen developer. And I was like, yes, can we enable the citizen developer? Because my secret, side quest in that is that I get to ask more people questions and see what they're figuring out.
Yes.
The like more secret user research.
Yeah, the more people I can get in there and using it, the more knowledge base I have to tap into to ask these questions that are familiar with the same system that I'm working in.
Yep.
So, trying like a lot of the enablement from my perspective and from what I got from, the mentoring with the CIO is that like my enablement comes from my personality.
Mhm.
So like one of the things that I have on my LinkedIn is like I'm a data junkie, and multiply that by this magnetic personality and I'm just a delight.
I'm just a delight.
So I am either really delightful or delightfully insane. It just depends
No.
on who you are. Like there is no in between.
It sounds like you're
awesome.
really passionate, Kat. Like it sounds like what's amazing about you is that you're super passionate about educating others. And I think
Yeah.
like having that in this community, like, and all of us here, I think have that same passion. So it's really cool to meet like another like-minded person. So thank you for all that you do.
I actually got like while I was at the Power Platform conference, I was approached by a couple of different people because I had presented just a quick little tip during I think it was the monthly Power Platform community call, but live in Orlando. I presented in my wizard robes with my magic wand.
Nice.
And every time I switched slides, I'd swish and flick the wand.
Oh my God.
But I had April Dunham. She had tagged me on Twitter about where else can you go to find get assistance for finding out about Power Platform magic from a real life wizard or whatever.
Right.
But I was just talking about how you can parse JSON, which I was so mad about because literally like the Thursday, Friday before, like everybody was going down there, Microsoft finally put out the parse JSON function. Right, that I was going to go talk about how to parse JSON, which lo and behold, my function was also called parse JSON, but
Yeah.
Not to be confused with partying with Jason.
No. But just a quick little tidbit about here's how you can parse JSON even if you don't know your schema, like what's coming back, and how you can get it into Power Apps to be parsed out if you don't have a premium connector. Like this is how you can go around that. And it was just like a quick little, hey, send all your information over into Power Automate, have Power Automate give you an HTML table back and spit that HTML table back as text into Power Apps and then parse it using 3 small regex strings.
That's clever.
And I was like, I did not just find this out. Like, it can't be this simple, can it? And sure enough, like one after the other, I was like, I have to present this to somebody. And so, talking with David and Hugo, they were like, yes, let's do this like in Orlando. So yeah, just the whole enablement thing though, like getting really excited about new features and functions, and then having like it was incredible. But sorry, my brain finally got around back to that question, which is where I'm trying to like my way back to. Sorry, it just left.
Well, let's do this. So you told us about your wizard robes and your magic wand. Your brand is your brand is pretty strong. Your LinkedIn, your Twitter, your website, they're all you're a wizard. You're a wizard. YER. Wizard.
You're a wizard cat.
Yes. So where can people find you? Is there anything else people should know about trying to find you, trying to work with you?
So I'm available on LinkedIn and Twitter. That's where you'll find me most, is You're a Wizard Cat on LinkedIn or Twitter. But now my website, yourawizardcat.com. And that's where I'll be posting all of my stuff for everybody to find.
Very cool.
So.
Well, Kat, thank you so much for joining us. This was a really fun conversation. Yes. As Rima pointed out, we all have that similar level of energy. So for those of you who get overwhelmed by my energy on a regular basis, I'm sorry, because it's multiplied here today.
Yeah.
So funny. I apologize to people
it's a
too.
magnet. It just draws people in. They just want to learn more from me, it
Right.
seems. So I'm
Well,
happy to put it out there.
that was great. For people who just want to know more about what we have coming, we've got a really exciting slate of speakers coming up for the next few months. And if you are interested in joining us, like Kat did here today, make sure you click the link in the chat to fill out the call for participants that we have. It's really simple. It takes somewhere between 3 and 25 minutes to fill out. I think someone just opened it and forgot to fill it out. But we would love to have you join us in a future episode to talk about GCC, GCC High, or DoD capabilities of Microsoft 365. Kat, have a wonderful day. Sarah, Rima, pleasure to see you as always.
Same here. Have a good one.